So I had another thought, and this is my second time trying to record this, so hopefully this time I don't get lost in my thoughts trying to explain them. But yeah, it's so crazy because I did a voice memo because one of my friends was like, you would do well with like voice memo, because I hate to write things down. I really do. I don't know why, I just do. And I was having a ball when I did the voice memo. I was like, yeah, like I'm not gonna forget anything, but like the issue is always going back to them. And it's like, because if I wait until I feel like going back, I'm never gonna go back to it, and then I'd never make the video. So I'm just like, you know what, this is kind of for fun anyway, so like let me just make it and see where we go. So, and here I am with my second try, and this might have to be it. But so I wanted the topic of this to be objectivity and humanity, because I know in the last video I did mention a definition of objectivity that I got from the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and when I read it I was like, actually no one can be objective. And like I've already had my bouts of my gripes with objectivity and how it's wielded, and having been a part of that warrior community, and having just seen behind, I guess, the hoax of objectivity, but I think this time I kind of wanted to relate it to like this idea of being human. So like if you don't remember, in the last video, the definition basically said like objectivity is the act of, actually no, it said the fact, I'm sorry, no, because in the last video, the last recording I did of this video, I went online and it was like the fact of, and I was like, and then I remember in the last video I literally thought that was like a typo, so I just put the act of, and I'm like, actually no, they actually said that. Anyways, yeah, they said the fact of being based on fact or something, and like not on personal feelings or beliefs. And I'm like, hello. We are in fact human beings, and we human beings, like we never exist in a vacuum, right? What did Kamala say? Child, if I can remember it, and I'll put it in. But yeah, like we grow up with, we grow up in environments. We take on, bits and pieces of the people and the things in our environments. We interact with our environments in order to form our own thoughts. Like there's just so much that gets filtered through our lens, like even personal values, that counts as personal beliefs. Like that's literally how people move and make decisions through this world. And there's merit in doing that, because let's say you value autonomy and you're in a job that like your boss is micromanaging you would definitely want to follow your personal beliefs and find a better job for you, otherwise you're going to be miserable, right? So that goes along with not only being human, it's very human to have personal beliefs and feelings, and it's also a positive and a way to live life more fully and to be more, to enjoy being human more fully, to have the discernment to be like, okay, this is where I should go based on, what I believe. So I think that is in direct opposition to like the definition of objectivity. And so for background, my undergrad was in chemical engineering, and so I'll use that as like my example, or like my lens, specifically for like objectivity. And so like, if you don't know, within engineering there's very much like a culture of cold hard logic, and we're engineers, we deal with numbers, and like numbers are often seen as these objective things that don't have any personal beliefs or feelings behind them, right? Even though we know you can't, when presenting numbers to people, you can't just be like 5, 6, 7, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, not 6, 7. But anyways, you can't just say that, because that doesn't have any meaning, right? You have to make meaning of the numbers, and making meaning of numbers is subjective. You bring your own personal beliefs to that and your feelings. But I think within cultures like engineering, there's this illusion of, if you fit into the criteria that is set by the culture to be objective, then you can often fall into the illusion that you are being objective, and that you are essentially, you never make a decision by your feelings. Like, feelings, like, why? I would never do that. Mind you, some of these engineering professors be brutal. And some of them are, ironically, driven by their feelings, because they don't acknowledge that they are human beings who have feelings that can direct them, and beliefs that do, in fact, have a bearing on how they act. So it's just very ironic, because it's like, if you can acknowledge it and make peace with it and wield it, then maybe you're actually closer to being to this idea of what I think being objective wants to be, versus when you don't, and you're like, yeah, feelings, what are that? What are those? English. What are those? And when you kind of like distance yourself from it, that's when it's like, actually, you're not as objective as you think you're being, because the very feelings that you're not acknowledging are in fact controlling you right now, right? And so I think the key that I think being objective, like what we try and get at in terms of what we say being objective, I think is, being a master over emotions, and our beliefs, and that is being aware of them. So in order to be a master over them, you have to be aware of them, right? You have to be aware of your humanity in that sense. And when I say aware of your humanity in that sense, I mean the fact that just being a human being, you have emotions. That's just a part of the human experience. And, sometimes people are going to do things that are going to piss you off, and sometimes you're going to also be sad. Sadness is an emotion. That's fine. And I mean, depending on where you are in society and what emotions have been kind of demonized for you, we all have our different relationships to certain emotions. But, like, that being okay, that being a part of your humanity, that you are human is okay, is something that I think this almost like a worship of objectivity that can happen within like modern Western society, and also within specific pockets of cultures, like let's say engineering culture, right? I think it's just so unfortunate and ironic, because, and this is, so I was reading Bell Hooks's Critical Thinking, and in that she talks about like the mind-body split. And as someone who, you know, I was drawn into like engineering education, in terms of like as like a graduate program, and my focus was like on trauma within engineering, within like academic spaces, like seeing that like mind body split, I was like, ooh, you know, and through that, I've been like through engineering education, I've been able to like take classes within like the education school, and this past semester, I was able to take a class on like trauma informed and like healing centered pedagogies, and it just really transformed just the way I viewed trauma, because I feel like coming in, you know, maybe ironically, I felt like it was much more of like a pathologized way of viewing it and like a medicalized way of seeing it, as in like, you know, this is like an illness, like a disease, and these are its symptoms, this is how it presents. How do we move towards fixing it? And I feel like that class, and also another class I took where it wasn't necessarily on trauma, but it was like we got to basically use our own interests to create like a measurement tool, for like a marginalized population. So I focused on like Black engineering faculty, and it was like assessing like severity of trauma response. And so like we got to read literature for that, and it was like a literature review of like at least 10 articles. And, you know, even like looking within like engineering, it's so hard to find, it was hard for me to find articles that were relevant, that were like using the term trauma. And I think it just made me understand that like trauma is just so broad. Like if that's one word that gets at the phenomenon of what I say as, you know, a rift in wholeness, you know, a compromise in the integrity of the soul. And so like there are different terms in different like contexts that are used that I really do feel like get at the same thing. So for example, within like Black engineering faculty, you know, like there's epistemic violence, you know, in a broader sense, there's in terms of like you know, oppression against, you know, Black people. There's also like weathering, and there's like race-based traumatic stress, and so there's like all these different terms, and it just it made me see it more as like a social phenomenon, and less of like less of like in a sense of like this is a medical illness that presents this way type of thing. So that was fun. But now I forgot. I went on a tangent. I don't know where I was going. Why did I bring that up? Guys, I'm doing my best. Sincerely. Oh my God, why did I bring it up? Well, okay, anyways, I'll just follow the train where it goes. But I was just reading that Bell Hooks book. It's Teaching Critical Thinking. She also brings up Wholeness, which I was like, oh my God, like, you know, when you have like something that you want to say, or like you have thoughts and you're trying to like explain it, but you don't feel like you're explaining it right, but like someone else takes the little that you've given them and just like says something, you're like, yes, like that's that. Like I feel like that's the feeling I got, and I was like, oh my God, yes, like I feel like that's like the thoughts I've been thinking type of thing. And so it was just, I felt like a really satisfying full circle moment, because in there she's like, oh, like she mentions like how integrity, like the the root of the word basically means wholeness. And I was like, oh my God. And here I spent like a semester literally like in trauma literature, and also in the measurement class that I was in, like we had this activity where we had to like define social justice, and I was like, yeah, like it's protecting the integrity of the human soul. And it's just so funny how like through that class and like through my other class, like understanding like trauma as like a rift in the wholeness of like the human soul, but also like the integrity of the human soul. And it's just fun to see how like all those kind of connected together. But yes, objectivity and humanity. So I think that's why I brought up about Hooks. The body-mind split, I feel like is something that she explains it further, where it's like it feels like there's this importance given to like one part over the other. So like, the mind ruling over like the body, versus like, just an integration of all those things as one thing that makes us human. And I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, I've seen this in engineering culture, which I feel like is very much focused or hyper-focused on this idea of like being objective and being like into the cold, hard logic and being fact-based, and it's all like an illusion because, no one is actually the very thing that they think they are in terms of like being objective, and it just comes out in different ways. And yeah, like I feel like it doesn't help the people who are the embodiment of this objectivity, neither those who are expected to conform to that standard of objectivity. It denies both parties of their humanity. So an example, like literally engineering within junior year, oh my God, the coursework was insane. The amount of coursework and like the way people were just, the types of assignments, like, oh my God. I was losing my mind. And it was junior fall semester. Was it? I think junior fall semester. I was like, this is ridiculous. Y'all need to coordinate with each other and get it together. Like, it's not, it did not. I'm reading a book on the basics of critical theory, and like this idea of needless suffering keeps coming up. And I feel like there was a lot of needless suffering within that program, within engineering. But I think it's the needless suffering. Like, I feel like, yes, because we went through the needless suffering, there was like a culture of like, yeah, we went through all this needless suffering and we graduated with a degree in chemical engineering. So like, we're the shit. And it's just like the gloating of like, yeah, we went through this suffering, right? So it's like, it goes back to that idea of like humanity, like, just being able to take care of yourself didn't exist, right? That mind-body split of like, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, like, you're probably barely sleeping, but like, it's just for a semester. Like, you can do it. That's what it takes to be an engineer. And so like the suffering, and I would say needless suffering, being like equated to achievement and some type of being more valuable within that whatever hierarchy was being built there. And having to kind of like numb and not take care of yourself as a whole human being, taking care of not only your mind, and challenging your mind to like learn new stuff. Like, no one's saying no one wants to learn things. Like, that's what we're here for, right? But like doing so in a way that doesn't allow you to also take care of like your body, your spirit. Like, it's just not that environment very much encouraged a mind body split. And I feel like, and I think actually a lot of environments that ironically do champion this idea of objectivity end up championing this idea of the mind and body as being separate versus them being a part of, you know, what makes a human being, a part of the wholeness of a human being. So yeah, did I properly explain myself? I hope I did. But just to recap, I would say is, like, I think, especially within modern Western society, there's this worship of this illusion, this idea of objectivity, which is really just an illusion, rather than embracing humanity and allowing humans to be humans, and seeing the strength in that, right? Because, again, moving according to personal beliefs has its strengths. It allows you to live a fuller, more whole life, where you're choosing, when you have the ability to choose conditions and environments that work for you, that help you flourish, versus ignoring that just makes you miserable. And maybe I'll share a story on that eventually. But yeah, and it's to no one's benefit to ignore their own humanity and the humanity of those around them. So yeah, and that, but I also think, I believe that perhaps a better definition of objectivity is to be aware of the personal beliefs and emotions that are leading to a decision, because when you're aware of that, then you can be critical about it and say, you know, what biases am I bringing to this? Is this truly an outcome that I would want? Do I want these biases to affect them in this way? I think that is truly being objective, but that doesn't sever one's humanity from them. It says, yeah, I'm a human being, I'm imperfect, I do have my presuppositions, I am coming in with biases, and this is how they would show up in this space, right? And therefore I can make informed decisions with that in mind, to the best of my ability to create the results that I would like to create, and hopefully responsibly. Like, hopefully we're hoping for good results and not like crimes against humanity. Yeah. I feel like this second recording was more succinct, and I hope I was able to like not get lost in my thoughts and lose you guys in my thoughts. So yeah, but I'm gonna put in the little recap at the end. So yeah, that's all I've got. Bye.